It was a quiet night in the small apartment, the kind of silence that only a late hour could bring. The glow of the television illuminated the room, casting long shadows across the walls. Mark had just finished his work for the day, and as usual, he decided to unwind by watching a film. He had recently stumbled upon a new streaming site, a platform that offered movies in Turkish with dubbed English subtitles. The website wasn't particularly popular, but Mark, a fan of foreign films, found the experience oddly satisfying. He clicked on a film that had caught his eye, Gazm Leev, a Turkish horror film. The thumbnail showed an old, decaying house, its windows shattered, with a foggy mist curling around the frame. It looked like the kind of movie that would be just creepy enough to keep him entertained. He settled into the couch, the soft fabric comforting against his tired body, and pressed play. At first, the film seemed typical. An eerie, fog-covered mansion perched atop a hill, a group of friends daring each other to spend the night inside. The soundtrack was ominous but not overwhelming, and the actors' voices, although dubbed in Turkish, added a layer of alienation that made everything feel distant, detached. As the group ventured deeper into the house, the tension in the air thickened. Mark noticed a slight unease crawling under his skin. The shadows on the screen seemed darker, somehow more oppressive. His eyes shifted toward the corner of the room, where the faint light from the TV flickered off the edges of an old bookcase, its contents now a blur in the dim light. He could hear the subtle hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the faint sound of traffic from the street below. But something felt off, like the normal sounds of the world outside had been muted, as if everything was closing in. The movie reached a scene where the friends began to hear strange noises, scratching at the walls, whispers echoing in the distance. Mark's grip tightened on the armrest, his gaze fixed on the screen, yet his mind kept wandering back to the room around him. He felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. The shadows in his apartment seemed to stretch unnaturally, moving ever so slightly as if responding to the unease in the air. The phone on the coffee table buzzed, breaking the tension. Mark jumped, his heart pounding in his chest. He quickly glanced at the screen, watching the characters react to the sounds inside the house. He was half relieved that it was just his phone, but at the same time his curiosity about the film had shifted into something more primal, an almost instinctual sense that something was wrong. The message was from his friend, Jake. "Hey, just checking in. How's the movie? You're watching Gazm Leev, right?" Mark quickly typed back, replying, "Yeah, it's fine. A little eerie, but nothing special." He set the phone down, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling, but as he looked up, the room seemed darker than before. He couldn't explain it. The walls, once a familiar shade of cream, now felt cold and unfamiliar. His eyes scanned the corners, but nothing was there. The film progressed, and soon the tension escalated. One of the characters, alone in the house, ventured into a dark basement. The camera followed her as she descended the stairs, the air thick with anticipation. Mark's breath caught in his throat when he noticed a strange distortion on the screen, an almost imperceptible flicker, as though the film was glitching. But when he leaned in closer, he realized it wasn't just the film. The shadows on the walls around him were shifting in time with the flickers. His heartbeat quickened. He glanced at the window. The streetlights outside were casting faint beams of light through the blinds, but the rest of the room seemed to be dissolving into an unnatural darkness. He stood up, his legs suddenly unsteady, and walked toward the window to draw the blinds. But as his hand reached for the cord, a noise made him freeze. A soft whisper, low and indistinct, coming from the other side of the room. Mark's breath caught in his throat. His eyes darted around, heart pounding in his chest. He turned slowly, scanning the shadows that stretched across the walls. The room seemed empty, but the whisper grew louder, now clearer, like a soft voice calling his name, Mark, over and over again. He stumbled back toward the couch, gripping the armrest tightly, as if the furniture itself could anchor him to reality. The voice seemed to be coming from all directions, echoing in his ears. He turned his attention back to the screen, desperate to focus on something, anything. But what he saw made his blood run cold. The film had changed. The characters, once mere actors in a script, were now looking directly at him. Their faces were twisted with expressions of fear, their eyes wide and unblinking, as if they knew he was watching them, as if they knew he was there in the dark room with them. In that moment, the lights flickered again, but this time the power went out completely. The TV screen went black, leaving only the faint glow from the streetlights outside. Mark's breath was shallow, his body tense. The whispering voices had stopped, but in their place, there was something worse. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. Then, through the blackness, he saw it. A figure standing in the doorway. Mark's pulse raced as he took a step back. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, staring. The faint outline of a person, a shadow against the dim light. His heart hammered in his chest as the figure seemed to lean forward, closer, its features still indistinguishable. Was it a person? Or something else? In a panic, Mark fumbled for his phone, desperately turning it on. The screen flickered to life, casting a brief flash of light across the room. When he looked up, the figure was gone. His phone buzzed again, the message from Jake flashing on the screen. "Dude, you okay? You don't sound right." Mark's hand shook as he typed back, his voice barely a whisper. "I think something is here." The room was silent once more, but Mark knew deep down that the true horror had just begun. The TV came back on. The film resumed, but now it wasn't just a movie. It was a warning. The characters were still staring at him, and the whispering returned, closer than ever.